Hello my friends and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Amnesty International doubles down on its report where it found that Ukraine exposed civilians to unnecessary risks and therefore caused death of civilians. And Ukraine and others did not like that a bit. So I have here an article where Amnesty says that it regrets distress caused by a report on Ukraine war, but fully stands by findings. That means I'm very surprised by this, to be very straight, because usually there are the big forces and big interests are capable of putting pressure on any kind of organization, unless it's North Korean, Iranian or Russian or maybe Chinese. They're able to make them change their mind, if you know what I mean. So I will read a few statements made by some people here that I think really express a very illogical, subjective and unfair way of looking at things. That would be a subjective analysis of the situation. I don't know if Amnesty International conducted its research, its study in an objective way, or but on the other hand, I'm thinking Amnesty International doesn't belong to Russia, doesn't belong to India, China, or United States of America, as far as I know. That's one thing. So I don't see why Amnesty International would take Russia's side, but it's not about taking Russia's side here. It's just pointing the finger at Ukraine, basically saying, you know, you guys, by putting your weapons and your military infrastructure, whatever you have, and military personnel in the cities around civilians, and you put them in schools or wherever you, hospitals or kindergartens, you expose those as you make them targets in the residential areas. So then they came with examples. They said, well, from 29 schools or something in 22, you guys deposited ammunition. What is that? And then when the Russians bombed those areas, you say, well, a kindergarten was blown up. Okay, so as I said, what would be Amnesty International's goal in stating that actually, guys, you are a little bit violating here something? So the Amnesty International report claimed Ukraine forces had exposed civilians to Russians' attacks by basing themselves in populated areas such as schools. Well, I'm thousands of miles away from where all this occurred. I'm reading their reports, their articles, their Ukrainian articles, where they purposely say that they are in the cities. Then you hear them that the Russians hit every day a kindergarten or 3 kindergartens and all that. I'm like, this is impossible. This is a lie. How can they beat only those things? It's a propaganda. But now I can see that these guys found out that actually the Ukrainians sometimes do that, and that's not right. I don't know, they said 21 out of 29 cases they investigated. The head of the Amnesty International's Ukraine office, Oksana Pakalchuk, resigned on Sunday. So she's not for the truth, she's just for subjective. So it seems like she wanted Amnesty International to not find anything. Maybe she's not concerned about those civilians that are exposed. So is she, you know what I mean? I mean, she wants that to continue. Are you upset that they found out this? And you should be okay. Let's remediate that. Let's get the Ukrainian army out of the civilian areas. Don't deposit things in the kindergarten. That's what I would do. Let's say I'm American, and I don't know, the Romanians attack the United States of America, and as Amnesty says, well, the Americans are doing what the Ukrainians supposedly do, according to the report. And I would say, well, guys, Maybe we should just take our military out of the residential area so we don't have our civilians, our population, our people exposed to this. But no, I say, no, 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 no. Amnesty International is a piece of whatever because I don't like its findings. Therefore, the status quo will be the same, which means American military will stay in residential areas and the Romanians will bomb civilians. Is this what I want? That makes him a criminal, doesn't it? It's very clear. It's very clear. So she's upset that those guys had this finding instead of saying, oh, maybe we should not be there because our people are slaughtered, the civilians, our civilians. But no, she said, no, 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 you guys are wrong. No, you are bad. But is it true? Are you not interested to see if it's true? Or you already know it's not true? I'm here from United States of America. I can tell you that I'm like, with all the articles and everything, I would be 80% at least certain that's true. 80% from here, from their articles, their, reports. So Sunday, she resigned on Sunday, saying the non-governmental organization has presented the victim as the aggressor. Well, victims are not always only victims. You could be partly victim and partly aggressor. It's not you're entirely a victim. Always. Sometimes you're a victim, but sometimes you're an aggressor. So let's say it's me and let's say my wife. All right, and let's say I start beating my wife. But my wife is stronger than I and beat the shit out of me. And then when the police comes, I'm down there beaten like I'm the victim. But who was the aggressor? I was the aggressor, wasn't I? So, sometimes, this is just an example. So I'm the victim at that point because my wife was stronger than I was, but she was the victim at the beginning and I was the aggressor. So roles can, it's not that if you have put the red, iron on me, victim forever. It's only one group that has that. And now it's another one who tries to challenge that group, but that group is going to smack the second group like that, bang! You can't take that. You can't take that. So it says here that this is what Pakalchuk said. She said, Pakalchuk took to the social media and she said all kind of things. And Facebook accused and so on. And then she said this. She also raised grave concerns about local staff members who had pushed for the report to be revoked. It is painful to admit, but I and the leadership of Amnesty International have split over values. Remember, values. I believe that any work done for the good of society should take into account the local context and think through consequences. Pakalchuk wrote on Facebook. Okay, so that means the fact that you expose the civilians to harm should be taken into context over there. So you had to do that. So that the means justify the aims, or the aims justify the means. That's kind of like that. So, or in order to make an omelet, you need to break some eggs. Or I can give you two examples that I'm pretty sure you, Podjoluk, you will not agree with. I will take one with the Second World War. Okay, so if it's about the context, then would you agree that, let's say, the Germans were somehow right, which we know that they weren't, just to make sure that we don't get tangled, they were right to kick out the certain groups from their countries because they perceived them as being, I don't know, pests, and they were against their own being stabbed in the back and so on, because the context, required the Germans to kick them out, so they defend themselves from these guys. So then, according to your logic, Podjoluk, they were actually right to do what they did to those groups, because the context dictated that. Hey, you want the German people to be infested by those groups and destroyed the whole nation? So you see, then I have another one. If you want to go about the context, you can go with slavery, and we're gonna hit another hot spot with the means and the goals. But we're not gonna go deeper into that. You know exactly what I mean. Now she tries to justify the presence of the the military among civilians because the Russians invaded. But she doesn't know anything about history. Doesn't know. People look in history, look, and you defend your country. Great, fantastic. But it doesn't mean you have to cause more harm to your own people. That's exactly what happens. So you do that because of your people, but you cause more harm. It's like, I don't know, I have a splinter in my I don't know, my finger right here, and in order to pull it out, I cut my hand off. Is that right? Well, the means, the situation, I solved the problem. But yeah, but with what cost? At what cost? So I'm very, she just resigned, which is fine. She just wants more civilians, it seems like, to die or something, because nothing will change. They just dismiss the findings, which, as I said, why would they come with these findings? And they're the victims. You're not the victim. Sometimes you are, sometimes you're not. What do you think that if you, let's say, like you shot you? Some Ukrainian soldiers, if you remember, shot some Russians in their kneecaps and so on camera. Who was the victim there? Are you still only the victim? No, you were the perpetrator over there. Was the abuser. So you see, in the same context, which is the war. But I think she's just unprepared. But what do you expect? And she has a lot of pathos, and I understand that. That's her country. But as I said, her logic will result in more civilians dying. Her civilians that she supposedly cares for. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.